How do we know what we know about turfgrass science? Welcome to Turfgrass Epistemology.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Turfgrass Epistemology. My name is TravisShaddox. We are on a never-ending journey to answer the question, how do we know what we know about turfgrass science? Thank you all for being here tonight. We're going to have a little bit of fun tonight with some tinfoil turfgrass. I'm going to take a little bit of a different approach, I suppose. Try to be a little more educational, I guess, today. So we'll see how it goes. So tonight we're going to be talking about a video, and the video is short, only 6 minutes. But I'm going to use it as an example to explain in more detail one particular fallacy, but I'm going to go over three, but I'm going to discuss them in more detail from a sort of a pedagogical perspective, I suppose. So, but first, let me go to what we're doing this month. We're in the middle of a fundraiser. You can go to GoFundMe.com and search Turfgrass, and the Turfgrass Epistemology fundraiser will come up. We've raised $3,015 at this point. We're trying to raise $10,000. What I've decided to do is I'm going to run this probably until Thanksgiving, and then I'll shut it off for the year. And whatever we get to Thanksgiving, then that's what it is, and then we'll run it again next year. With the $3,000, this has already helped to fund the open access of a paper that I literally, 16 minutes before I came on, got the galley proof on my email, and I contacted the editor, and we are going to be able to include the acknowledgments of the people who donated to help support the open access of that paper. If you go to GoFundMe.com tonight, actually until maybe noon tomorrow is the deadline if you want your name as an acknowledgement on that paper. Right now there's probably about, I don't know, 15 names or so. If you donate $50 or more, then I'll put your name as an acknowledgement to helping sponsor that open access, and your name will forever be on that paper as an acknowledgement. And the remaining, and that costs $2,000. So $2,000 of that $3,000 is already gone. It's already been spent on the open access fee. The next paper that's going to be coming out will be, well, I don't know when it'll be coming out, but when it comes out, it'll also be around $2,000. And we will look to see who has donated additional funds, or we'll have another fundraiser next year, or whatever the case is. And that's kind of the way it'll go. Any remaining funds will go to support turfgrass research. Of course, you can be a member of the YouTube channel. That helps support as well. The members of the YouTube channel will also be acknowledged. Not every member, but just the word members of the YouTube channel will also be acknowledged on the paper, because you all have definitely helped support the research that I conduct in that paper as well. So if you want your name on the paper, go donate $50 or more right now. By noon tomorrow on Eastern Standard Time, I'm going to submit that galley proof back to the editor, and then that'll be it. Done. There won't be any going back and trying to fix it after that. So if that's what you're interested in, then please do. If you don't want your name, but you do want to donate, then just donate under anonymous, and I won't include your name. Okay. So GoFundMe.com, search for turfgrass, and that should come up. Now let's do this. I'm going to be going over a couple of papers tonight, just in some comments on them in support of my position. But let's just start the tinfoil turfgrass right now and see how it goes. This episode of Tinfoil Turfgrass comes from one of the channel's oldest and most reliable swindlers. It's from the channel called Earthworks, and the title of this video is Earthworks Turf Talk, Struggling Turf, Calcium Could Be the Missing Piece. And I just want to point out that I was notified this by a very high-profile superintendent he sent me this text, left his name off. He probably doesn't want his name on here. And he said, "Hey, just got this, and I thought I'd share it with you. Enjoy." Smiley face palm. And I hadn't seen it yet. So I said, "Thanks." And I said, "I just finished it. That was great. I'll definitely go over that one." That was, I guess, a week or two ago. And he said, "Fantastic." So if you do want to contribute to the content of the channel, it is open for your submissions at any point. I do appreciate your input. You can send it to the voicemail, which is 859-444-4234. And you can email me at TravisShaddox@gmail.com. But I just wanted to point out that this particular video was sent to me by a viewer and a very well-known superintendent, and I do appreciate that. And so just for the people and the companies out there, there are superintendents at extremely high-profile courses that recognize your content now as complete BS. If they didn't recognize it before, they definitely recognize it now because they're sending it to me saying, "Look at this junk. This is ridiculous." And nothing can make me more happy. I mean, they very likely, you probably picked it up before this channel ever existed. You probably recognized something was wrong. But a little part of me likes to think that this channel has helped you be able to identify fallacies and recognize flaws, understand that, well, something's wrong with what he's saying, but I'm not really sure how to identify it or explain it. Well, maybe now the content from this channel has helped you understand, that's why what he's saying is complete nonsense. I get it now. So we're going to go over this video tonight. If you have any questions or comments, please put them in the email or put them in the chat, and I'll try to address them as I go through. Connecticut Cubanica says, "I have my diagnostic criteria for turfgrass BS disorder. Let's see how many minutes it will take to check all the boxes." We should play a drinking game and see how long we can go without, every time you check a box on the BS disorder sheet, you have to take a drink. Let me get that open. I think I got it right here. For those of you who are unaware, I keep a diagnostic sheet for turfgrass BS disorder. I completely ripped it off of the DSM-5 diagnostic disorder criteria. And it says diagnostic criteria for turfgrass BS disorder, and you kind of fill out your name like you go to the doctor. And it has things like, you check the box if these are in your history, like liquid aeration, liquid dethatch, base concentration, calcium, magnesium, calcium, potassium for stress relief, these sorts of things. Feed the soil, dormant feeding, molasses, all these things. Boron. You're going to see boron tonight. You're going to see boron tonight. You're going to see calcium tonight. Base concentration tonight. What else are we going to see tonight? Anyway, you go down there, and there's some more questions down at the bottom. It says, do you have an answer for every question? Check this box. Don't feed your turf, feed the soil. Have you ever said any of these things, or your salesman ever said any of these things? You need to balance your soil. You're going to see that tonight. So you're going to see a lot of this stuff tonight. So if you're interested, I think this is actually a PDF that's in the description of every video, if I'm not mistaken. I can't remember. It's been a while. But thank you for reminding me, Connecticut Cubanican. Oh man. So anyway, let's get to it. Please put your comment in the chat. I'll do my best to go back and answer the members' questions first or comments first. But you know me, I tend to forget and I lose track of it. But nevertheless, let's get started. Here's the video from Earthworks. Struggling turf, calcium could be the missing piece. Let's see what is going on here at Earthworks.
Hi, everybody. This is Joel Simmons for another Earthworks Turf Talk.
Okay, so for those of you who don't know, Joel Simmons is a very well-known con man, a very, very popular and well-known swindler in the turfgrass industry. He swindles money from people by selling them products using base concentration. He sells them a bunch of calcium that very likely has no benefit to them whatsoever. He's actually now promoting on his channel ozonated water and nanobubbles, I saw. Or he had a guest on there that was talking about ozonated water, which has been refuted at least 2 times in the literature, maybe 3 times in the literature. Another hocus pocus fanciful magic dirt water product. And so that's who Joel Simmons is. He's the owner of Earthworks. Self-admittedly fired from the University of Rutgers. He used to teach the soils class in the 2-year program at Rutgers. Thank goodness he was fired. And he, under his own acknowledgement, he was fired for teaching base count saturation. In essence, misinforming the students of how soils function and work in agronomy. So that's who Joel Simmons is.
I'd like to spend some time today talking about one of my favorite subjects, calcium. Calcium affects so many things in turf management. It affects cell wall structure.
Okay, so I'm sorry to interrupt again, but let me just say this at the beginning of the show tonight. We're going to go through this video, and on a serious note here, I know I'm kind of goofing around at the beginning of the show, but on a serious note, let's watch the video. You know me, there's no way I'm going to go through the whole video without stopping it, but this is a very, very clever and unfortunately common tactic in almost all turfgrass marketing. A lot of it, at least, uses this very same scheme. I'm not going to identify it right now. I'm going to identify it at the end, kind of give you guys time to think about what's going on and exactly how what they're saying is deceitful, because what you're going to notice is most of this video, you're going to hear me saying, yep, that's correct. What he's saying is correct. Most of it, not all of it, but most of it. Very little that he's going to say is indeed incorrect. Almost all of it's true. But yet he's being deceitful. So I want you all to think about that as we're going through tonight and see if you can pull out. There's a couple of sort of blendings of some fallacies in here, but there's one particular one that I've mentioned once or twice that I'm going to, diagnose this video with. Okay.
It affects root growth and development. It certainly affects the nutrient uptake and the balance in that soil. It can really reduce stress and affect disease resistance in a soil if calcium availability is present. And we know for a
Okay, so before he goes to the next one, I'll skip by just a second. So what I want to point out, he has a list here of 5 things. Calcium affects cell wall structure. That is true. Calcium affects root growth and development. That is true. It affects nutrient uptake and balance. Well, nutrient uptake, that is true. Balance in the sense that he's talking about soil balancing, so you can make one check mark in the BS disorder. He's talking about soil balancing, so there's one. But it does influence the uptake of other elements into the plant if you're applying too much of it. So in that sense, it's also true. The other one, stress and disease resistance, there's a little bit there as well. It's possible, it's biologically plausible that is true. And calcium also has an influence on soil structure. So virtually everything he has on the screen right now is true. I really wouldn't, unless he's going to say specifically soil balancing on number 3 here, then I wouldn't really argue with much of this at all. I would say, yeah, what you're saying is correct. Let's continue.
Availability is present. And we know for a fact that calcium can affect soil structure. It will flocculate a soil, opening up the soil, allowing for more air and water to move through.
Okay, so he's saying calcium will flocculate a soil, opening it up, allowing for more air and water. All of that is true. Okay, I want to make sure it's clear. I don't know if you're going to find a soil physicist or chemist that's going to disagree with the statement that calcium influences soil structure, can affect soil structure. That is true. I'm not going to open up the present here because he's really gift wrapped me. He's given me a gift here that's so precious. I'm going to wait till the very end to open it up tonight. But again, I'm going with, yes, calcium does have an influence on soil structure. Soil structure does have an influence on air and water movement. All of that is correct.
Although I was shocked early in my career when I would write articles about calcium and talk about that particular subject and get so much pushback from the agronomic dinosaurs, as I like to refer to them. But let me go.
wonder if he refers to me as an agronomist. He probably refers to me with a couple of 4-letter words. But I don't know if agronomic dinosaur would be one of them or not. I guess, I don't know what your definition is of a dinosaur, but if your definition of a dinosaur is someone who asks questions that we don't have answers to and then pursues those answers and then publishes those answers, adds to the scientific literature, builds on the scientific model of turfgrass science. If that's your definition, then I'm a dinosaur for sure. But I don't know, he's just being spiteful. He's a little bit annoyed probably with me and some of the other people that have clearly spoken up and refuted his nonsense, his BS. But you can call me a dinosaur. It's okay. No problem.
Through this in detail. Let's talk about cell wall structure. If the room that you're sitting in is a if it was a cell, if that room you're sitting in is a cell, those walls would be made up of calcium pectate.
Again, true. You're not going to find a whole lot that I disagree with what he's saying here. Okay, this is true. Okay, plant cells. The cell wall is one of very few differences between plant and animal cells. The cell wall, plants have cell walls, and that cell wall has a large percentage of that cell wall is made up of calcium pectate. Got it. I agree. But you want to be mindful, be careful when somebody starts explaining what an element does. This is the tactic used in sales very, very commonly. This is what phosphorus does. This is what potassium does. It's okay to know those things. It's very important to understand the function of these elements. There's no question. But in cells, they'll oftentimes start with that. Phosphorus is necessary for energy transfer. These sorts of potassium is necessary for water movement, all these things. They'll start off with describing the function of the element. That is a key flag you want to put up in your mind when they're talking about that. And I'm going to explain why when we get towards the end here. This is a short video.
And the more calcium available to those walls or to those cells, the stronger the cells are going to be. So they're going to actually cement the cell walls together, creating rigidity so that the plant can survive physical structure and not get all banged up with wear and tear. So cell wall structure is very important when we're talking about turf grass. And of course, calcium is going to be the main player on that.
Well, I don't know about main player, but I'm in agreement with what he's saying so far. Okay.
Root growth and development. Calcium actually accumulates at the root tip.
Now, this right here, I'm leaving on the screen. This right here, I love that you put this on here. When you see this on Twitter, you see this on Twitter every other day, where someone's holding up a plug of turf grass and showing all these roots out the bottom. You'll see it on TikTok, or you'll see it on Facebook, or whatever. And they're holding up a plug and they're showing, look at all these roots. And then they have, polymer coated urea next to it, or they'll have humic acids, or they'll have seaweed extract or whatever. Clearly that had to cause all these roots, right? Because these roots couldn't possibly exist unless you use this product. I'm not saying the product did not have an influence on the roots. What I'm saying is just holding up some roots to me. I can go outside and take a plug of my tall fescue and pull it up and see roots down 12 inches deep. I can't even pull it out. I just rip the roots out. There's so many roots in there. And I could just say whatever I want to say. Oh, look at this. It's because I did a rain dance over it and prayed to Thor. Clearly, my Thor rain dance caused these roots to grow deep. So this right here, this may be the most common picture you see on Twitter and TikTok and all those other things where they're holding up roots as if somehow we're supposed to be convinced to buy the product or perform that management practice because someone's holding up a bunch of roots in front of me. You have no idea if that product or that management practice resulted in those roots. Be mindful of that.
Where the cells divide. So this allows the cell or the roots to go deeper into the soil and get denser and stronger. Low calcium levels will actually stunt rooting. And so if you're really trying to establish strong rooting on your turf grass, and everybody is, make sure the calcium levels are adequate and that there's available calcium. And we'll talk more about that.
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't disagree at all. I mean, calcium is important. I'm not a plant physiologist. I can't speak specifically to calcium and root growth. It's not really my area. But yeah, clearly, calcium is going to have an influence. Well, I'll just save it to the end. I want to cut in now and say what it is, but it's just such a beautiful gift he's given me tonight. I'm gonna drag this out as long as I can. The question in the chat is from Mike Conroy. Perfect question, because I'm going to talk about this tonight. He says, how much money can you make selling calcium? Is there much profit in it? Very little. There's very, very slim margins on calcium products. If you made 10% on calcium products, I would be shocked. I'd be shocked if a distributor made that. It's got to be in the single digits. It's got to be pretty low, unless you're selling to like homeowners. Homeowners is probably much, much higher. I'm talking about like in bulk quantities. You're buying tractor trailer loads, or you're buying pallets of it as a LCO or a golf course superintendent, a saw producer, something like that. Very, very, very low. And that's what these grifters will tell you. I'm not making any money on calcium. I wouldn't be dishonest selling calcium. I don't even make any money on it. Why would I be lying, or why would I be deceitful about calcium when there's not even any money in calcium? Be very careful with that, because they are correct. There is very little money in calcium. But that doesn't have anything to do with your other intentions, your ulterior motives, getting them in the fence, getting them hooked on crack, get them in the door. Then you start selling them all this C90 and all this other hocus pocus magic dirt water that you make 70 points on, 80 points on, right? That's what happens. You get them in the door with a product that is really a loss leader. They're not making any money on lime or gypsum, hardly anything at all. But then you get them in and you start selling them, polymer coat urea is at 40% or 30%. And you're making massive money on liquid products. That's what happens. Yeah, good question.
Number 3 would be nutrient uptake and balance. Actually, calcium in the soil profile improves cation exchange of all sorts of elements. It helps.
I don't know what he means. How calcium improves cation exchange. I think he misspoke there. The calcium's not going to really have an influence on the cation exchange capacity of a soil. pH would, if it's an organic soil, obviously. That'd be another issue. But I think he might have misspoken, just meant like it affects the exchange of nutrients, not the cation exchange.
Helps absorb other nutrients like magnesium, potassium, and it balances sodium from moving into the cell too aggressively.
So there's balancing and magnesium, so you can mark that off on your BS criteria.
Which can lead to sodium-induced wilt and other issues. If potassium isn't...
Just remember, he's talking about sodium here. We're going to come to sodium on a PDF here in a minute. He's talking about gypsum and calcium influencing sodium, and I've talked about that on the channel before. That is biologically plausible, but I want to show you a PDF in a minute.
Brought in properly, and calcium helps that to happen, then sodium can start to really create a stress factor for any turf manager. Number 4 would be stress and disease resistance. Take a look at this picture. This is a picture of take-all patch. We learned early on that take-all patch is relative to manganese in the soil, but it's also, studies have shown that ammonium sulfate can help reduce take-all patch. And one of the things that a lot of agronomists have told me is that by having ammonium sulfate in the program, it releases calcium, making it more available.
Now, okay, let me just cut in here, because I'm going to get so far down the road here, I'm going to forget what I'm doing. He's talking about manganese with take-all patch, and he's talking about applying calcium to adjust to help fix take-all patch because of its influence on manganese or something like that. Let me just go back, because I can't even remember his nonsense.
Have shown that ammonium sulfate can help reduce take-all patch, and one of the things that a lot of agronomists have
ammonium sulfate helps reduce take-all patch, but he's going to follow it up with the calcium.
Told me is that by having ammonium sulfate in the program, it releases calcium.
It releases calcium. Okay, so let's look at this. I want to show this as I go here. I'm going to show this, and then I'm going to back up and show the gypsum and sodium and stuff like that. What he's talking about is a paper that was published in what journal was this in? Crop Science, and it was published in 2003, I think. Yeah, 2003. And this paper here was published by Heckman and 2 of the greatest turf scientists, Bruce Clark and Jim Murphy at Rutgers. And what they were looking at here was optimizing manganese fertilization for suppression of take-all patch disease on creeping bentgrass. And what they found was, I'm just going to read the last couple sentences of the abstract. It says, throughout the study, compared with untreated turf, manganese effectively reduced disease severity when applied either in April or in October. Moreover, 2.25 kilograms, which that's like less than a tenth of a pound. That's like a 20th of a pound. I can't do the math in my head, but very, very little manganese was generally as effective in suppressing the disease as were higher application rates, except in the third year of the study when higher rates were more effective. So what they're saying is the application of manganese on low manganese soils reduced the incidence of take-all patch. And that's what Joel's talking about. They found out early on manganese was influenced take-all patch. So he's correct. This is indeed a phenomenon. We haven't really teased out all the reasons why that is, but that is indeed true. But then he says, well, we learned ammonium sulfate, if you apply ammonium sulfate, it releases calcium. I don't know where he's pulling that from. Okay. I have no idea. But what I can tell you, though, is that it's unlikely, and the reason that I say that is what's probably going on is what's going on with this paper, which I don't think I've gone over, but it's one of the greatest papers ever published. I'll just say it is the greatest paper ever published on ammonium sulfate and pH in soils. It's called Correction of pH-Induced Manganese Deficiency in Bermuda Grass Turf by the greatest soil scientist, turfgrass scientist in history, George Snyder. Now, this was published in 1979. What he was doing here was in Fort Lauderdale, they had manganese deficient turfgrass down there. And so they could alleviate that deficiency by applying manganese sulfate. But they could also alleviate it by applying an ammonium sulfate. And what you see here is that the ammonium sulfate the pH started at 7 and say 7.2, and the ammonium sulfate reduced it down to nearly 4.5, resulting in the solubilization of manganese in the soil. So the ammonium sulfate was resulting in greater amounts of manganese available in the soil, and they concluded down here at the bottom that the best method of alleviating the deficiency appeared to be through reducing soil pH. This might be done by using sulfur, but a pH maintenance in a favorable range can probably be achieved by most economically by choosing nitrogen sources with a proper degree of potential acidity, like ammonium sulfate. And now you know why when you guys counsel with me on Calendly, if you want to, calendly.com/TravisShaddox, you can counsel with me on there. You now know why I don't really recommend applying sulfur because it can be quite dangerous. I just recommend switching from urea to ammonium sulfate. Now you know why. 1979. It says right there. You can do it with sulfur, but it's probably cheaper just do it with ammonium sulfate if you're applying nitrogen anyway. And they applied nitrogen as ammonium sulfate, lowered the pH, and alleviated manganese deficiency. So when Joel says ammonium sulfate releases calcium, I would say, how do you know? He doesn't know, but I'll say that ammonium sulfate definitely lowers pH, and it definitely results in manganese alleviation of manganese deficiency. Now, I don't know if that would also in turn result in reduction of take-all patch. I don't know that, but one can infer if applying manganese results in reduction in take-all patch, and applying ammonium sulfate results in more manganese, then you could logically infer that could biologically be plausible. Not saying it's the case, but it's biologically plausible. Joel here, because he's a calcium salesman, seems to think that ammonium sulfate is going to release calcium, and the calcium is going to have a benefit on it. You'll finish this off and see what he says.
Making it more available. So we started playing with calcium in specific incidences where take-all patch was a problem, and we were able to find some reduction in take-all patch.
I don't believe that for a second. Don't believe that for a second. This is a charlatan, a grifter, whatever you want to call it, swindler, whatever it is. You know that because he's a base cation saturationist. And he's still selling it. He's delusional. In despite of all the evidence refuting base cation saturation, he's still selling all this nonsense, still polluting my industry with all his nonsense, still going around with his little Soil First Academy show, indoctrinating and all these people. It's really sad. So why should I believe you, Joel, when I know what you're saying is not true? You probably know it's not true as well. And you're saying that you alleviated take-all patch using calcium. It's absolute nonsense. I should put that on the BS criteria of a reduction in take-all root rot or take-all patch by applying calcium. It's absurd.
Along with manganese and other good cultural practices.
Well, but how do you know? You applied manganese, I had cultural practice, and I applied calcium, but it was calcium. That's composition division right there, if I've ever seen it.
But in terms of stress and disease, it actually will help fight heat stress and drought stress and salt problems.
Calcium's not going to help salt problems. Calcium can alleviate sodium-related issues. But salt problems are only alleviated by leaching, and if you have a sodic soil on top of a saline soil, then you could apply gypsum in that case to help, leach it through. But it's just clean water and a leaching fraction is really all you can do for salt. So applying calcium thinking you're going to alleviate a salt problem is a huge waste of money.
As well as, of course, the structural issues and effect with that can be affecting the turgidity of the plant. And then, obviously heavy traffic is going to damage the plant. More calcium, the stronger that plant's going to be. And
so he's inferring right there, or implying right there, that applying calcium is going to result in a stronger plant and be better able to resist traffic damage. I have no reason to believe that. We've heard this for years with potassium, and despite all of our efforts, we've never seen any benefit to applying calcium on traffic resistance or traffic tolerance or whatever it is. Calcium probably has a better case to be made than potassium, but I haven't seen anything on that either, so there's no reason for me to believe it.
Lastly, but never least, is soil structure. We know we can flocculate soils by getting calcium into the soil profile. Take a look at these soil tests.
Okay, before he gets to the soil test, I'm going to go back to what he said about, about what he said about gypsum and alleviating all these magical things. This, again, technically could be true. Okay, I want to make sure it's clear here. This could be true. Gypsum and sodic soils, which is probably less than a fraction of 1% of our soils in turfgrass, but it could happen, where you have the right clays and you have the right amount of sodium and you have the right problems and no rainfall and all those other things, then the application of gypsum may be able to help you in those sodic soil situations. But we're not talking a little. Okay, we're talking a lot. Okay, it's going to take a mountain of it, depending on the type of soil that you have. And this is a publication that was sent out by North Dakota State University, and I like this publication. It's just like a extension publication, but it's nice. It has a bunch of other publications you can go search and read those publications. But here we have this inconspicuous little table, Table 1. The title of this extension publication, by the way, is Effectiveness of Gypsum in the North Central Region of the United States, SF-1321. If you want to download it, it's free. It says effectiveness of gypsum, tillage depth, and tile spacing, reducing sodium saturation in southern Illinois soils. This was pulled from a Sharma 1974 proceeding, and I think it was Soil Science of America Journal. I can't remember, but it's a proceeding. And you have here gypsum rate in tons per acre, the depth they tilled it, and then the sodium saturation. And you will indeed notice that eventually you apply enough gypsum that the sodium saturation declines from about 5.7 to 6, something like that, to about 1.7 milliequivalents per 100 grams. So that's CEC. Okay? So there was 5 on the CEC, you want to call it that, 5 centimoles of positive charge per kilogram soil, if you want to do it in those units, to about 1.7. So if you go, well, Travis, I mean, you just said it doesn't do much, but now you're showing it does. Well, no, it does. It can happen. Look at the rates. 27 tons per acre tilled to 3 feet deep. That's what it took. When you applied 10 tons and tilled it in the top 6 inches, it was the same as doing nothing. When you applied 10 tons, they had tile spacing. 10 tons at 6 inches, 10 tons at 6 inches with no tile spacing, or 10 tons at 2 feet Nothing. It's all the exact same, 5.12 to 5.8, something like that in the sodium saturation on the CEC sites. It's only when you apply 27 tons. What is that per 1,000 square feet? Half a ton? Is that what that is? A half a ton per 1,000 square feet? Tilled to 3 feet deep to have an effect on sodium saturation. That's what it took. So this is what I'm saying. Biologically, it's plausible. I'm not saying it's not plausible, but is it possible? Is it reasonable to assume that you're going to have some sort of profound effect on turfgrass by applying whatever you're applying in gypsum? It's unlikely. It's very, very unlikely. Let's look down here at some of the yields of these row crops. Gypsum influence on spring wheat and corn yield. Notice 0 gypsum. They had 200, I guess this is bushels per acre. Corn, 200 bushels per acre. Let's just call it 200 and 200 with no gypsum. When they applied 300 pounds per acre, they had 200 and 200. There was no difference. There was no difference between the corn yields or on the wheat yields at all when you applied no gypsum or 300 pounds of gypsum. Let's look at the gypsum influence on corn and soybean yield. This is from Beresford, South Dakota, and Gelderman in 2003. Gypsum rate of 0 resulted in 108 bushels per acre. When you applied gypsum, 600 pounds or 1,500 pounds, there was no difference in yield, 0. But look what happens to soybeans. 39 bushels per acre of soybeans. When they applied 600 pounds of gypsum or 1,500 pounds of gypsum, it went down from 39 to 34. There is a reduction in yield as a result of applying gypsum when it went on soybeans. Let's look at gypsum influence on spring wheat yield in rural South Dakota. No gypsum, 74 bushels per acre of wheat. 140 pounds of gypsum, 67 bushels, no difference, no statistical difference, no difference. So is it biologically plausible for gypsum to have some sort of influence on the aggregate stability or the sodium issue in soils? It's biologically plausible, but it's not realistically going to happen. Okay. First of all, you have to have the problem, which most people probably don't have sodic soils. Most people probably don't have these soils that gypsum would help alleviate. But even if you did have it, you're talking massive, massive quantities in order to impart an actual beneficial effect. At least in those soils, it was that case. Okay. I'm going to go to that next. So now let's continue with the video, and we'll see. I'm going to get to these flaws in a second here. We're going to go back to the video. Now we're going to look at soil testing. Now I've paused it. He's going to look at this soil test. This is exactly how the base cation saturation in calcium con is conducted right here on the screen. This is a perfect example. I'm going to lay this out for everybody so everybody understands exactly how this con works. And so hopefully you can identify it if you're a superintendent sitting at your desk listening to this, pulling out your soil samples, or you're an LCO person and go, well, this is what the sample says. I don't know what you're talking about, Travis. I'm going to explain it right here. This is a soil sample from Brookside Labs, okay? And what they do here is they have, just like normal soil samples do, they have the CEC, they have it in milliequivalents, but it's the same as centimoles of positive charge. Then they have pH of the soil sample, organic matter, and then they have sulfur and parchment. They go on down the list here, okay? So let's look at this number 1 here. Sample depth in inches, 6 inches. Well, fine, whatever. Total exchange capacity is 12. pH is 6.3, organic matter 3 to 5, sulfur 25 to 50. Now, malic 3 phosphorus as P2O5 in pounds per acre, 250 to 500. I don't know why they list it as P2O5 in pounds per acre. It's a very peculiar unit, but fine. All good. Then look what happens with the calcium and the magnesium. Desired value, 3,264. Value found, 3,264. Now, for those of you who are unaware, the critical limit on calcium using a malic, this is malic 3. No one really knows for sure. The reason we don't really know for sure, because it's unbelievably difficult to find a soil so low in calcium that you would actually see a response in turfgrass to applying calcium. It is very, very difficult to find. In fact, I've never even seen one. I saw one that I think probably exists in Northwest Florida, but, I never was able to actually diagnose that for sure, but it seemed to me to be possible. But it's very hard to find. So that's the reason we don't know what the minimum limit is. But it's probably somewhere around 200 or 300 parts per million, maybe 3 at 6 inches, somewhere around that. It's hard to say. It probably varies by turf, varies by location, a lot of different things. But let's just say 300. On the screen, they have the desired value at 3,000, assuming a CEC of 12. 3,000. So you can see very easily how you have a much greater opportunity to sell somebody calcium when the limit is 3,000 compared to when the limit is 300. Let's move over to samples 4 and 5. This sample has a CEC of 12. Let's just stay with 4 here. A CEC of 4, a pH of 7.2, and a calcium in pounds per acre of 5,720. And look what they're saying. They're short by 1,300 pounds. Again, the limit is 300. It doesn't matter what the CEC is. The CEC could be 5, the CEC could be 50. As long as the malic 3 extract extracts 300 parts per million or greater, that is very well correlated with being sufficient for turfgrass growth. It doesn't matter what the CEC is, because the extractant was capable of extracting the quantity necessary for the turf. Does that make sense? It could be a CEC of 30, and that number could be 300. Right here, this number could be 300. Or it could be a CEC of 8, and that number would be 300. If it was 300, I would say you have enough. Might be a little low. Might be a little bit in the risk zone here. But this is how the scams run. These numbers are inflated. The desired values are inflated based upon the exchange capacity. And this is how they have a much greater opportunity to sell you something. You can imagine if let's say the floor is here. Okay, this is 0. If I say this is enough, 300, the salesman only has this much gap to sell you something. But if they say the gap is 3,000, the ceiling's 3,000, then they have a whole lot of room in here to convince you that you're deficient and sell you calcium, sell you potassium, sell you magnesium, sell you whatever. That's how the scams run. It's exactly how it's ran. Let's see what he says.
Number 4 and 5 in particularly have very low calcium levels. And as we added calcium, in this case, it was a high calcium lime and some gypsum, we were actually able to flocculate the soil.
Now, he just said he applied high calcium lime to a soil that had a pH of 7.3, and the other one was 6.3. I don't know how else to identify a swindler than if your pH is 6.3 or greater, and he's recommending applying lime. That is a con man. Do not be convinced by that. I don't care if he goes to church with you every Sunday. I don't care if he drives your kids to school and he's the greatest guy, you trust him explicitly. He is a con man if he's convincing you to apply lime when your soil pH is greater than 6.3. There is no doubt.
And open up those soils physically, allowing for more air and water movement to go.
He has no clue. Open it up physically, applying gypsum, he has no idea if any of that's true. Let's keep this in mind. This is the definition of BS. He doesn't know, and he doesn't care. He's just trying to convince you to do whatever it is he's convincing you of. In this case, buying his calcium products, probably.
Go through there, and also it allowed for an improved environment for microbiology.
He doesn't know that either. Show me something, Joel. Refereed peer-reviewed, refereed, reputable turfgrass journal. Show me something where applying calcium as calcium, not calcium sulfate, not lime from the influence of pH, which is what your, Messiah did. He screwed up all his numbers because he didn't realize he was messing with pH. Talking about Dr. Albert. Calcium as calcium. Show me how that resulted in increased microbial activity, and then show me how that microbial activity resulted in some sort of turf quality that I care about. Show me.
One of the ways that Earthworks has really been very effective in making sure calcium is available is through our product, which is one of our oldest products. It's called CalVantage. And CalVantage is made up of 3 different forms of calcium with all the cofactors that allow calcium to get into the plant. Things like boron, which is the gatekeeper for getting calcium into the
There's boron. Check it. Who's got the list? Pull out the list. I told you boron was on here. Boron's the gatekeeper. Boron might be the gatekeeper. So what? Show me a soil or a turf grass that's deficient in boron. Show me one. The only one I've ever known was one that was artificially induced in a greenhouse. That's it.
the plant. So we can get calcium into the plant. We can help with cell wall structure, root growth and development, nutrient uptake, disease and stress resistance, and obviously we can start to help flocculate the soil, creating a better environment for microbiology.
Well, besides the microbiology thing, again, most of what he's saying is true. I'm going to get to this in a minute. Most of what he's saying is true.
Manage at 5 ounces per thousand every couple of weeks has been a steady winner for a lot of golf course and turf managers, golf course superintendents and turf managers in our industry. And like I said, it's been one of our oldest products and one of our biggest selling products. It creates availability. Limestone can take up to 3 years to truly become available. Gypsum may be a little faster, but it's not super fast. But when we see on soil tests that we have deficiencies, we will apply the appropriate amount of calcium in forms of limestone or gypsum, but always wanting to keep that CalVantage in the program so that we're always getting available calcium into the plants to really help with this structural nutrient and really help fight off a lot of the stresses that turf managers deal with every single year. Thank you.
Okay, so very clever. I would say that years ago, I probably would have fallen for this nonsense. I probably would have been suckered into this flaw. I was not very well versed at the time. I was not very well versed in logical fallacies and understanding, critical thinking skills as well as I am today. But at the beginning of the show, I asked you all to think about this. He's going to be talking about it. Most of the stuff he's going to say is true. Most of it. Even the gypsum thing. I'm not saying what he's saying is not true. I'm just saying you're going to need a mountain of it if you're going to see a beneficial response. I mean, it's biologically, it's plausible. So very little of what he said could I stand up and say he's definitely wrong no matter what. I mean, that's not the case, okay? However, he is being deceitful. And that's the title of this episode. And I wanted to take a minute to explain exactly what I mean by that. And because this is so common, and it's such a common twist of an argument or a case that it can be deceiving. I'm going to show 3 fallacies. I'm going to show the first 2 that you may want to jump on first, but I'm going to explain how this isn't really that. It's something else, and then I'm going to show you exactly what it is. Now, the first one I'm going to talk about is the strawman fallacy. Now, you might think the strawman fallacy, well, let me explain what it is, and then you might think this is what it is. The strawman fallacy was first discussed in the 4th century BCE by Aristotle in one of his writings on sophistical refutations. He noted in an argument that it's an argument that distorts and misrepresents an opponent's position, a precursor to the modern fallacy. This straw man was then identified in its form today by a gentleman named Stuart Chase in 1956 in a book called Guides to Straight Thinking. I have not read that book. But a straw man, it's exaggerating or misrepresenting or just completely fabricating someone's argument and then presenting your own position as being reasonable. Now, what the flaw that Joel committed, let me describe it, and then you can kind of work your way through these fallacies and understand why it's not a straw man. What he said was, calcium is needed by the plant, calcium is important in the soils. Essentially, that's what he's saying. Therefore, you should buy and apply my calcium product. This is two completely separate things. Calcium in the soil and the plant versus applied calcium. These are completely separate. They're not related. The reason that you might think it's a straw man because he's like, well, he's talking about calcium in the soil and the plant being useful, but then he's arguing a different position saying you should apply my calcium product. That's not really a straw man. A straw man it'd be like calcium is a plant essential element. If I said calcium is a plant essential element, and then he said, you see, applied calcium is plant essential, so you should apply calcium. In this example, he's taken my position, calcium is plant essential, and slightly changed it to say applied calcium is plant essential. That would be a straw man where he's intentionally inserted a word that I did not have in my argument. In this case, he inserted the word applied calcium and saying, okay, well, then you should apply calcium because Travis said calcium is plant essential. He's not doing that. What I'm saying is he did not say that. So this is why it's not a straw man. He's not necessarily misrepresenting an argument. He's saying the correct things about calcium for the most part. And then he's saying, you should buy my product that has calcium in it. He's not misrepresenting a position from the beginning. That would be a straw man. The next thing you might think of is the red herring fallacy. The red herring fallacy was first identified in 1807, or it's credited to William Cobbett. The red herring fallacy was coined by journalist William Cobbett in 1807 to describe how a strong-smelling smoked red herring fish was used to distract hunting dogs from a scent trail. The phrase itself is used to mean something intended to distract attention from the real issue. So you could say, this is a type of red herring. He'd say, calcium's a problem. You need calcium. Calcium's important for cell walls. Calcium's important for stress. Calcium's important to reduce disease. Calcium's important for resistance of physical wear and tear on the plant. Therefore, buy my applied calcium. In other words, he's distracting you from the real argument. The real argument is, should I apply calcium? But what he's arguing at the beginning is what calcium does. And that's the key when it comes to a lot of marketing. They'll describe what it does. I don't care what it does. As a scientist, I do. But as an applicator, I don't really care what it does. I care what your product that I'm going to buy and apply will do for me. That's the argument. I'm going to spend money on something. Will that product benefit my turf grass in some way? That's my argument. And instead of addressing that, what they'll address is, well, calcium is important. Calcium flocculates soils. Calcium is important for microbiology. Yes, all that's true. But what will your product do for me? That's the argument. So it is a type of red herring, but it doesn't quite fit that well. Red herrings refer to an attempt to distract attention from the real issue. As I mentioned, the real issue is, what am I applying? Well, your product that I'm applying do something. So he's distracting us at the beginning of the video by talking about what it does rather than what his product does. This would be like person A saying applied calcium is usually not beneficial to turf grass. This is something I would say. Applied calcium is usually not beneficial. In fact, I would say I'm unaware of any case in the history of the universe where the calcium that I applied resulted in a beneficial response in turf grass. I'm not aware of any case. I'm aware of the effect of gypsum. I'm aware of the effect of sulfate. Yes, that's true. But the calcium itself, I'm not aware of any case where you applied the calcium and it resulted in some benefit. So I would say this: applied calcium is usually not beneficial for turf grass. If it were a true red herring, he might say something like, Turfgrass is subject to disease, drought, pests, which is what he said in the video. Calcium can alleviate stress, so you should apply calcium. So that's what I'm saying. It's a type of red herring that he's doing. It doesn't fit real well, but that's sort of what he's doing at the beginning. He's distracting us away from applied calcium. What is that going to do? And he's distracting us with what calcium does. Don't get distracted. You've heard me say this many, many times on my channel. Don't get distracted from your goal. Your goal in saw production is to make as much money as you possibly can, and that is by growing turfgrass as fast as you can and selling it as fast as you can. That's your goal. In sport turf, it might be to maintain the most consistent field and the safest field. In lawn care, it may be aesthetics, greening, density, whatever. That's your goal. In this case, he's saying calcium's important. You need calcium for cell walls. You need calcium for stress disease. Okay, you might go, well, yeah, no, he's right. You're right. Calcium is indeed useful for that. You're right. I need to consider that. Okay, so here's some calcium for you. He's distracted you. Be careful with that. But what I would like to discuss, though, tonight is really what I think is probably a better fit for this particular flaw, and that's called the non sequitur. You've probably heard me discuss this once or twice. Just in passing, I might say that's a non sequitur. Sorry, my voice is going. What is a non sequitur? Again, this was by Aristotle in the 4th century BCE. So this BS has been going on for over 2,000 years, okay? It's been going on for a long, long time. It's not going to stop with Earthworks. It's not going to stop with anybody selling you all this other fanciful stuff, magic dirt, water, all these other things. Not going to stop. It's been going on for over 2,000 years. Aristotle pointed it out, many of these flaws. This refers to a conclusion that does not logically connect to its supporting statement or premise. Okay? So it refers to a conclusion that does not logically connect. This would be like calcium is beneficial to turfgrass, which is what he said at the beginning of his video. That's true. Calcium is beneficial. Calcium is essential. It is a plant essential element. There's no question. Calcium is very important in soils. There's no question. It's the dominant cation in all soils of agronomic importance, bar none. Calcium. Absolutely. But from that, he concludes that applied calcium is beneficial to turfgrass. And that's where they don't connect. And that's why it's a non sequitur. Calcium is beneficial to turfgrass? Yes. Applied calcium? Whoop, hold on. Those two aren't related. You have to show me evidence that the applied calcium is beneficial. Not that calcium is beneficial. We all know calcium is beneficial. We all know calcium is a plant essential element. What does the applied calcium do that I'm going to buy and put out? What is that going to do? And that's known as a non sequitur. So who knows how many flaws he's had on this channel. He really is a great contributor to Tinfoil turfgrass. He may, John Perry's probably the number one guy at the top, I suppose, but it's kind of hard to beat John Perry's, Dunning-Kruger effect. But a close second is Joel Simmons and the Earthworks grift that they have going on over there. They really do have a good situation going on over there with generation of nonsense and BS and all sorts of ridiculous claims. So that's what that is. I want to take a minute to kind of educate in a little bit different way the straw man from the red herring from the non sequitur. These are all very well known identifiable fallacies, flaws in reasoning. Just because someone tells you nitrogen is important, it builds amino acids, it builds proteins, you have to apply it in the fall or whatever, and now you're gonna buy this slow release polymer coated urea. Well, hold on, wait a second. I agree, nitrogen is important. Right? And nitrogen does build proteins, yes. But is the polymer coated urea the most effective source of that? It might be, it might not be. Show me some evidence of that. Why don't you talk to me about that? Why are you talking to me about what it does, what the nitrogen does, the calcium does, the phosphorus does? Those are all non sequiturs. Premise A does not connect the actual conclusion, which would be the next part of the video. The last part was conclusion. You should buy my applied calcium. Okay, I'm going to go back through the video if I can speak. See if I can get through this. don't know why my voice goes so quickly. Don't forget to before I get too many people going, don't forget we are in a fundraiser. It goes to GoFundMe.com and search for Turfgrass. Consider being a member. Like if you would, please like the video and subscribe if you want to get more content and be alerted. I think if you hit the bell icon, you might be alerted whenever I go live or post something new. I think that's how that works. Any questions, put them in the chat now and I'll get to them. Yeah, MC Drugy. If we did a Tinfoil BS drinking game, could anyone still be coherent by the end of the episode? On yesterday's members only video, I had a video on there that was pretty good. It was from Weed Man. There was only like one little thing that was a little off on that particular video, but sometimes I go over good videos. There was a video by oh, sorry, I should know. Real nice guy that I went over a couple months ago, and most of the video was accurate. I can't remember his name now, but he's a real nice guy. He and I spoke on Calendly, and he has a big channel. But anyway, sometimes I go over good videos. I'll be happy to go over videos if you send them to me. Calcium borate's almost sold out everywhere. Get it while you can. Yeah, boron. That's what we need. We need more boron. We you know what we should do? Here's a t-shirt idea. Get the clip from Saturday Night Live of Will Ferrell when he has more cowbell, and instead of just make a t-shirt and have it say more boron instead of more cowbell. I'd wear that. We need more boron. More boron. Everything looks pretty good here. I just think we need a little bit more boron. Yeah, this is the same guy that says if your mud sticks to your boot, he has a cure for that too. That's the magnesium scam. I mean, who would even say that? I mean, it's one thing to think that, but then get on YouTube and say that. If you're live, it is what it is. But he recorded that and goes, "Yeah, that sounds good. I'm going to put that on." If your mud sticks to your boot, show me honestly anywhere on the planet, anywhere where you stick your boot in mud, pull it out, and no mud sticks to it. I mean, that's the Barnum effect, where you feel unusually specific connections to very broad statements. That's the Barnum effect. Yeah, he's good at that too. MC Drugy, DSM-5 TR is my home turf science. I like the parallel. I don't run into many people that know what the DSM-5 is, but I am peripherally aware of that, only because my own diagnosis is in there. When you get diagnosed, at least when you're me, you're like, that can't be true. I don't buy that. And then you look up the DSM-5 and you're like, oh man. It's like one after the other, after the other, after the other. I'm like, all right, okay, I guess that's what it is. So I have to acknowledge it. Still have problems with that though, by the way. Henry D says, Turfgrass Epistemology, enjoy and appreciate your channel. Thank you, Henry D. I appreciate it. I need all the positive comments I can get. I've been getting a lot of positive comments lately. Usually I get a lot of negative comments. I got a couple of really bad comments just recently, a while back, but I'm getting some really good negative comments on TikTok, but a really flood of good comments on TikTok too. So I'm getting more good comments here lately. I might coin this, or I might trademark this, Hocus Pocus Magic Dirt Water. Just call it MDW. I think one of the members put that in the chat a week or two ago. So yeah. Sorry if the audio is cutting out. I'm moving my chair. Maybe that's the microphone. I don't know. Yeah, MC Drugy says, isn't take-all patch a fungus? Isn't fungus more about the presence of spores in the right conditions than plant nutrients? Yeah, I don't know much about take-all patch. I don't know. I guess that's take-all root rot. I don't even know. But I believe it's a root, or it's a soil-borne disease, and apparently manganese has an effect on that. I'm not real sure. Oh, MC Drugy says he's a licensed psychologist. Huh. I wonder where you practice. You don't have to say if you don't feel comfortable, MC Drugy, but Yeah, I've seen my fair share of you. Been very, very helpful. I love me some psychologists. I've been they changed my life. And I'm just on a serious note here for a second. They really did completely change one or two. Really did change my life. It's just been difficult. If you're an MC Druzy, you see patients MC Druzy, you know, it's difficult as a patient when you've been diagnosed with something when you're older in life to actually come to terms with it. Like, how can that be? How can that be possible? But as a scientist, I get the same response from my clientele. They'll say, well, that can't be, or they don't believe it or whatever. But I'm not saying it to harm you. I'm saying it to help you. It's just my professional opinion that your soil is low in phosphorus or your soil is high in phosphorus, whatever. Don't be offended by it. But I get the same thing from them. So I have to recognize as the patient, wait a second, I don't want to be stubborn. I don't want to be closed-minded. This guy is a professional or this girl is a professional. This is their professional opinion. I have to at least acknowledge, while I might not agree with it, that they're giving me their professional opinion, and I have to at least pursue that in order to grow as a person. So yeah, it hasn't been easy. Oh yeah, the tons per acre of gypsum was 1,239 pounds per 1,000 square feet. I mean, who's going to do that? It's nuts. And then till it to 3 feet deep. Yeah, tile spacing, MC Druzy. So tile spacing, and if you don't know agronomy or row cropping, one of the question is, what is tile spacing? Could it also be tilling 3 feet deep would get sodium to move out of soil just by wrecking the soil structure without adding anything? It's possible, yeah. I don't know how they set that study up. I can go over it. But tile drainage, tile spacing is, in large fields, one of the growth limiting factors is too much water. And the way that they alleviate that is to put in tile drainage. And what tile drainage is, just for lack of a better analogy, just think of a large perforated pipe that they have these massive tractors knife into the soil and roll into the soil 2 feet deep, 3 feet deep, whatever it is. And those drain out off the field and come back to daylight at some point where the water will then drain off the field, allowing the field itself to remain more closer to field capacity, a more favorable condition and moisture for plant growth. That's what tile drainage is. It allows for the water to flow out of the field, and it's usually buried on that spacing, 30-inch spacings or whatever the spacing was in that document. Sorry, yeah, I forget sometimes. A lot of people aren't naturally agriculture nerds like myself. But it very well could be that they just tilled it, and that could have been an issue as well. It could have been a confounding factor for sure. Is that real, Mike Conroy? Cal Vantage, 2.5 gallons for $150. Wow. If anybody's really interested in this sort of thing, especially superintendents or saw producers who are getting their water from well water, if they're in limestone areas, just go out to your irrigation heads and turn them on and then get a little sample of your water, an aliquot of water. You can do it at home too. Just get it from your irrigation. Get an aliquot of water and send that off to the lab for an irrigation suitability test, or just send it off for an analysis for elements. You might be completely shocked how much calcium is just in your normal water. And then you're going to apply calcium. You're already applying how many, pounds of calcium per year just in your irrigation water. MC Druzy says, with tomato and pepper plants, I have applied calcium and magnesium with a foliar spray with the belief it could be absorbed by the plant that way. If that is true, would grass be able to absorb foliarly? Yes, that is possible. Turfgrass leaves readily absorb nutrients applied to the leaf surface. I don't know about peppers and tomatoes. I have both banana peppers and tomatoes in my yard, in my garden this year. Those leaves are much larger, but in a very similar fashion, I would expect that to be true. The issue is that calcium and magnesium in the turfgrass tissue is almost never at deficient levels. This is one thing I didn't mention really. He's talking about calcium's needed, calcium's important, Yes, but there's calcium everywhere in most soils. Your roots are literally swimming in calcium, and to a lesser degree magnesium. Magnesium is very soluble. It remains soluble in the soil. It will not oxidize out like manganese or iron will. So magnesium and calcium are usually at high enough levels in the soil that applying more would be like adding grains of sand to the beach. Usually, only in the most unusual, bizarre circumstance, silicon-based sands that have been acid washed or something crazy like that, would you ever find calcium, magnesium at such low levels that applying magnesium or applying calcium as that element results in a beneficial effect. It's very rare. I have documented magnesium responses on Florida sands, but it's 1 out of 20. I mean, it's very rare. 5% of the time, maybe. Oh, Ross Kinclair. I'll put this on the screen. I unsubscribed from Lawncology just this evening. He hasn't posted in a while and reminded viewers he's still here and working on big things. Oh, he did. So he's coming back, maybe. He's still there and working on big things. Yeah, I don't know. I want him to come back selfishly for the content of my show. It's just a treasure trove of information. But the scientist in me doesn't want him to come back because he just keeps misinforming the public and dragging our industry down deeper rabbit holes. But Western Mass, really? Well, the video I went over, you're a member, so you can go back and watch the video from yesterday's members only thing. And at the end of the video yesterday, I had 3 little short YouTube short videos. And Weedman had like maybe a 2 or 3 minute video. And they were talking about water. And for the most part, what he was saying was good. I mean, I think there was one thing, can't remember now what it was, but I'm open. You give good information, then I'll say it's good information. If you give bad information, then I'll say it's bad information. But yeah, they did a pretty good job in that video yesterday. MC Drewge's licensed in South Carolina. Nice to know that, yeah. South Carolina is going to get a new turf professor. Clemson is. She's going there, I think, in January or February, from what I understand, something like that. So look forward, people at Clemson can look forward to having a new turf professor. She's awesome. Wilson Miranda. I haven't seen you around here a little bit. I remember you a while back, Wilson, interacting with the show. He or she says, Wilson, okay, he says, I've always heard low phosphorus leads to fungus disease pressure. Does research back that? I don't know the answer to that question well enough to say live on YouTube. It's very possible that any nutrient deficiency results in a weakening of the plant to the point where it may be more susceptible to disease, infection. That's possible. But I can't say that I remember seeing low phosphorus and there was more dollar spot, or low phosphorus, there was more take-all patch, or whatever the case is. I can't recall that. So I can't say, no. The only ones I've ever seen with low phosphorus are simply the blue or the purplish, sort of grayish looking turf grass that pops back the second you put phosphorus on it. Wouldn't shock me if you found something, but I don't recall seeing low phosphorus associated with fungus disease. Oh, wish all my clients had that mindset. Yeah. Well, this is decades of therapy here talking. Well, maybe not decades, but years of therapy talking here. Okay. So, I'm trying to, reach the, Maslow's highest point, self-acclamation, self-actualization. And, part of that just means acknowledging your shortcomings. And I have problems, but that's not one of them. Thank you for your compliment. Consider being a member of MC Drewge. Tinfoil lawn therapy doesn't fix you. Well, it helped me, that's for sure. It definitely helped me. Yeah, so MC Drewge says, like French drain. You can think of it as a French drain, I guess, if you want to think of it that way. Yeah. And French drain sometimes has like gravel or something in there. I think it does, doesn't it? But yeah, more or less, for layman's terminology, it's basically like that, yes. Chuck Benzine, thank you so much for sent one Turfgrass Epistemology gift member. Oh, MC Drewge is a member. Okay, now so Chuck Benzine sent you a membership, MC Drewge. So go to the videos. There's a whole bunch of members only videos that you can check out, MC Drewge. And if you scroll down in the posts, the actual chat posts, being a member, you'll be able to see the members post now automatically. If you scroll way down, you'll see the Facebook invitation you'll see the invitation there. And then you can go to the Facebook group and join that Facebook group and contribute over there if you like that. Is that true? Oh, well, I thought that was, I'm sorry, I thought that was somebody else. Zoltar soil testing for, I don't know how you guys change your names all the time. I don't even know how to do that. Zoltar soil testing plus fortune telling. I predict your soil and turf needs more products I can sell you, Connecticut All right, guys. I appreciate the input tonight. We had a pretty good group here tonight, 60 or 70 people. I'm going to let you guys go. Members only show on Monday. There will be a members only show on Monday. And then on that show, I'll be laying out the upcoming schedule. I'll probably put it on the Facebook group as well. Until Monday morning, I really appreciate everybody showing up tonight. Thanks so much. Have a great week. I'll see the members back on Monday morning. Thanks, guys. Have a great week. Bye.